Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to cover chapter 3 of this manhwa. Now in the last chapter, our main character found out that the ancient world doesn't care about your brilliant modern ideas. After introducing the toothbrush and making a quick profit, a massive merchant group completely copied his design, flooded the market, and crashed the price down to a single iron coin. The family's debt is still there, the deadline is getting closer, and they still have no real way to solve their financial problems. And in this chapter, Jo Hwi finally realizes that his greatest weapon isn't martial arts. It's the knowledge he brought from the modern world. So let's begin. The chapter opens with Jo Hwi standing completely alone, staring blankly as he tries to think of a way out of this financial nightmare. He knows that simply selling handmade household items won't be enough to clear a massive debt of 60 silver coins in 2 weeks. He needs something bigger, something revolutionary. Naturally, his modern mind starts drifting toward the greatest inventions of human history. First, he thinks about electricity. If he could introduce electricity to the ancient Central Plains, he would instantly become the wealthiest and most powerful man in the province. But almost immediately, reality hits him. He stares at his hands and realizes a massive problem. He has absolutely no idea how electricity actually works. Like most people in the 21st century, he used light bulbs and smartphones every single day. But he never actually learned how to build a power plant or generate a current from scratch. Giving up on that, he thinks, okay, how about a steam engine? It changed the modern world, so surely it can work here. But once again, the exact same problem stops him in his tracks. Even if he somehow spent months figuring out the exact mechanical schematics to build a functioning steam engine, this era doesn't have railroads, trains, or any supporting infrastructure. The entire idea falls apart before it even begins. Desperate, he shifts his thoughts to weapons. What if I make a gun? Gunpowder and firearms would completely shatter the power balance of the martial arts world, but he immediately pinches his nose in frustration. In his past life, he only ever shot a gun a couple of times during his mandatory military service. Knowing that a gun exists and actually knowing the chemical formulas for gunpowder and the engineering required to forge a firing mechanism are two completely different things. At this point, Jo Hwi gets incredibly annoyed with his own limitations. He grumbles to himself about how in all those popular transmigration web novels, the main character magically knows how to reinvent advanced technology, build factories, and restructure civilization overnight. Meanwhile, here he is, a real-life transmigrator, and he can't even figure out a basic mechanical layout. While he is lost in his frustrating thoughts, his younger sister Yeon walks outside into the courtyard. She looks at him and asks a very simple, innocent question, "Brother, do we have any water left?" Without even breaking his train of thought, Jo Hwi looks at her and bluntly says, "Don't wash your hair today." Yeon's face immediately drops into an annoyed pout. She stomps her foot and says, "Ah, really? You told me not to wash my hair yesterday as well." Jo Hwi doesn't even blink. He calmly looks back at her and says, "Wash it the day after tomorrow." Yeon looks completely baffled by his ridiculous logic and yells, what are you even saying?" But Jo Hwi isn't just being a mean older brother. He is looking at the household from a perspective of pure efficiency. He explains the harsh reality to her, pointing out that fetching water in this area is a grueling task. It takes a worker nearly 2 full hours just to walk down to the source, fill up the buckets, and lug them back to the house. Right now, with a deadly debt deadline looming over them, every single bit of time and physical labor matters. He looks at her and casually finishes with, "If you don't like it, then go get the water yourself." Right around this time, their older brother, Jo Hwi, walks out into the yard. He is sweating, breathing heavily, and wearing a bright, refreshed smile. He greets his siblings cheerfully, saying, "Yo, today is another refreshing morning. Have my little siblings slept well?" Jo Hwi looks at his brother's carefree, happy face and feels an instant headache coming on. The family is drowning in debt. Ruthless loan sharks are preparing to butcher them in 15 days, and yet this guy is completely unfazed, spending his entire morning wildly swinging a sword in the yard. Honestly, the older brother doesn't seem to have a single care in the world, completely detached from the financial ruin staring them in the face. Seeing the two brothers standing together, the younger sister Yeon suddenly looks back and forth between them. She leans closer to the older brother and whispers something very interesting. "Hey, don't you think our second brother has completely changed lately?" The older brother blinks, looking totally confused. As expected from a dense martial arts fanatic, he has absolutely no clue what she is talking about. Yeon rolls her eyes and reminds him about the toothbrush incident from 2 weeks ago. She points out that when Jo Hwi was gathering the materials and figuring out the production, he calculated the entire business plan, costs, and numbers almost instantly. It took him less time to figure out the math than it takes to drink a simple cup of hot tea. For a guy who used to be a quiet, useless bookworm, that speed was definitely not normal. Hearing this, even the dense older brother admits that it felt incredibly strange. He says that the way Jo Hwi was shouting out numbers looked exactly like the rapid-fire calculations advanced merchants use in the big city markets. He looks over at Jo Hwi suspiciously and asks, "Has our little bookworm suddenly started practicing arithmetic behind our backs?" Listening to his siblings whisper about him, Jo Hwi stands there completely shocked. He realizes that from his own perspective, he wasn't doing anything special or magical at all. He was just using basic, elementary school multiplication to calculate the toothbrush inventory. It is something every single child in the modern world learns before they hit 10 years old. But suddenly, a massive realization hits him like a lightning bolt. He looks at his siblings' amazed faces and thinks, wait a minute. Do people in this era genuinely not know how to do basic multiplication? In ancient times, regular citizens and even common merchants relied on slow, tedious counting methods or primitive abacuses. Rapid mental math was a rarity. Jo Hwi's entire worldview shifts in an instant. He realizes that knowing the four fundamental arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, isn't just basic trivia here. In the ancient Murim world, having a 21st century mathematical mind is an absolute superpower. Meanwhile, Yeon keeps going down the list of all the weird ways her brother has changed. She tells Jo Hyuk that Jo Hwi has become way better at talking. He constantly uses highly structured sentences, and he just sounds entirely too smart. Hearing his little sister summarize his condition makes Jo Hwi laugh internally. From his perspective, he is just speaking normally. But he forgets that his brain holds the combined memories of his modern self, a man who spent nearly 20 years inside an advanced educational system. He went through elementary, middle, and high school, acquired college-level knowledge, and spent 7 brutal years memorizing dense legal and historical texts for the civil service exam. On top of that, he grew up in the digital information age, where data travels across the planet in seconds through smartphones and the internet. Yet, all of that massive, world-spanning experience gets hilariously summarized by his little sister into a single sentence. "You're just really good at talking now." This realization completely changes his approach. Jo Hwi grabs a wooden stick from the yard, kneels down, and starts drawing rapid characters and diagrams in the dirt. His brother and sister lean over his shoulders, looking completely bewildered. They can't even recognize half the modern shorthand characters he is scribbling into the ground. Jo Hwi writes something and stares at it and crosses it out and writes another one. He completely tunes out the world, analyzing his situation from every possible angle. And eventually, he discovers his true advantage. The thing this ancient world lacks the most isn't advanced technology like steam engines or electricity. What it truly lacks is modern conceptual knowledge, specifically, the science of economics. Basic principles that are considered completely normal in the modern world are virtually non-existent here. Concepts like supply and demand curves, extreme workforce efficiency, corporate contracts, market penetration theories, and systematic business management. Entire modern empires are built on these basic ideas. Jo Hwi looks down at his dirt diagrams and smiles. He realizes that this economic knowledge inside his head is worth far more than 1,000,000 toothbrushes. He finally has a real weapon to fight back. Filled with a sudden burst of confidence, Jo Hwi drops the stick, spins around, and marches straight into the family's iron workshop. Inside, the heavy sound of a hammer hitting metal echoes through the room. His father, Jo Soon, is drenched in sweat, working tirelessly at the anvil to forge basic tools. Jo Hwi walks right up to the hot forge, stands firmly, and drops an absolute bombshell of a sentence. "Father, please pass this entire workshop down to me." The hammering stops instantly. The silence in the room is deafening. His father slowly lowers his heavy hammer, turns around with a look of pure disbelief, and barks, "What kind of absolute nonsense are you talking about?" Jo Hwi doesn't back down. He stands his ground and tries to explain that he has a brilliant new business strategy to save the family. But his father immediately cuts him off, refusing to hear another word. To an ancient, traditional craftsman like Jo Soon, this workshop isn't just a place to make a quick buck. It represents his life's work, his family heritage, his pride, and his very soul. He looks at his son with deep disappointment and says, "You don't understand. You don't possess the true soul of a craftsman." But Jo Hwi isn't trying to be a craftsman. He is trying to survive. He completely ignores the emotional argument and asks a sharp, cold question. "Father, tell me, how much more silver can we possibly borrow right now?" This question completely shocks his father, turning his disappointment into pure disbelief. The family is already buried under a life-threatening debt of 60 silver coins with a brutal loan shark, and now his bookworm son walks in and casually asks to borrow even more money. Before his father can even yell, Jo Hwi starts pointing at the tools in the shop and calculating out loud like a cold corporate accountant. He looks at the heavy iron block and says, "The anvil is high quality, it's worth at least 50 silver coins. The rest of the specialized smelting tools are worth around 30 silver. If we count the physical property value of the workshop itself, we have solid assets. If we put everything we own up as collateral, we can easily secure a brand new loan of around 300 silver coins." Hearing his son talk about betting the entire family's future on a gamble makes his father's blood boil with fury. From his perspective, Jo Hwi is talking like an insane, reckless gambler who wants to risk their home, their livelihood, and the safety of his mother and sister. But Jo Hwi remains completely calm under his father's intense rage. He looks his father dead in the eye and asks a crucial question. "Father, if we desperately needed to borrow money to survive, why on earth did you go to a shady, dangerous loan shark in the first place?" His father freezes, completely caught off guard. Jo Hwi continues pressing his advantage, saying, "If you are going to take out a financial loan, you have to do it properly. You should have approached the major established merchant groups instead. For example, the Fire Dragon Merchant Group is famous throughout the region for dealing with independent craftsmen fairly. Why didn't you even consider them?" At this point, the father is completely stunned. The anger drains out of him, replaced by utter confusion. This does not sound like the quiet Jo Hwi, who used to hide in his room reading history books all day long. For a brief moment, the father wonders if his son's recent near-death illness did something to his mind. Has this kid always been this incredibly bold? But then a memory flashes in the father's head: the toothbrush. Nobody in the family believed in the weird wooden stick with boar hair either, yet Jo Hwi's crazy idea actually generated real silver coins in a matter of hours. Could it be that his son genuinely sees a path to victory that nobody else can see? The father lets out a long, heavy sigh. He knows that out of everyone in the household, Jo Hwi treasures his mother and little sister more than anyone else. He wouldn't recklessly risk their lives on a foolish whim. He relaxes his posture, looks at his son seriously, and asks, Do you actually have a concrete plan?" Jo Hwi smiles confidently and answers, "Yes, I do." Then he delivers a statement so outrageously ambitious that it leaves his father completely speechless. "I don't just want to clear our debt, father. I want to build the absolute greatest iron workshop in the entire Anhui region. I am going to establish the Jo clan's iron kingdom across the entire province." His father almost falls over. The workshop is literally on the verge of bankruptcy. They can barely afford to eat without debt, and this kid is standing here calmly talking about building a commercial iron kingdom. He looks at Jo Hwi like he has completely lost his mind and points out the immediate glaring flaw in his dream. "Are you insane? Have you forgotten about the raw materials? Iron ore is incredibly expensive right now, and the local general controls the entire trade. How exactly do you plan to solve that?" But Jo Hwi is 3 steps ahead. He explains that their traditional method of manufacturing is completely outdated. Instead of wasting grueling days buying raw, unrefined iron ore and spending countless hours smelting and purifying it themselves, they should skip that entire process. They should use their new capital to buy pre-refined iron ingots directly from the larger suppliers. His father scoffs, asking if his son even knows how much a pre-refined iron ingot costs on the open market. Without a second of hesitation, Jo Hwi rattles off the exact current market price. It sits at exactly 3 silver coins. This instant, accurate answer completely stuns the father all over again. It proves that Jo Hwi wasn't just daydreaming. He has actually been quietly doing intensive market research behind their backs. Jo Hwi then lays out the core strategy. He notes that the workshop's biggest, most reliable seller has always been standard iron plows for farming. The local farmers constantly need them, meaning a massive guaranteed market demand is already sitting right outside their door. Instead of wasting time trying to invent fancy, complicated new weapons or items, they need to focus 100% of their energy on mass-producing their best-selling item. And then comes the shocking part of the pitch. Jo Hwi looks at his dad and says, "And to completely take over the market, we are going to slash our retail price by 30%. The father nearly jumps out of his boots, yelling, "What? Are you out of your mind? You want to take a standard 40 silver iron plow and sell it for only 28 silver coins? We will ruin ourselves." To an old-school craftsman, this sounds like financial suicide. Forging a single iron plow by hand takes nearly half a month of exhausting, non-stop labor. How could they possibly lower the price that much and make a profit? But Jo Hwi points out the traditional flaw in his father's mindset. He explains that by buying pre-refined iron ingots, they eliminate the most exhausting and time-consuming part of the workflow. According to his systematic calculations, skipping the purification stage means a single plow can be fully manufactured in just 4 days instead of 15. His father is still highly skeptical. He argues that even if production becomes faster, a single craftsman still only has 2 hands. They would have to work themselves to death to make enough volume, and with a lower price tag, the profit margin on each plow becomes way smaller. What is the actual point of all that extra stress? Jo Hwi just lets out a slow sigh. His father is still trapped in the old-world mentality of an independent craftsman who does everything alone. Jo Hwi steps closer, smiles, and drops the ultimate economic game-changer. Father, whoever said that you have to do all the work yourself? The entire workshop falls into a stunned silence. That single sentence completely changes the nature of the conversation. Jo Hwi begins explaining the revolutionary modern concept of the division of labor. He explains that instead of having one master blacksmith labor over a single plow from start to finish, they will hire a team of local workers. He breaks down the production line perfectly. They will hire specialized workers like stokers to manage the intense heat, molders to shape the molten metal, and finishers to handle the final details. Each group will handle only one specific, repetitive step of the process. By dividing the labor, the speed of production will skyrocket to unprecedented levels. He even introduces the concept of work shifts, explaining that the workers will rotate in groups so the workshop can keep running for longer hours without exhausting a single soul. He lays out the entire mathematical blueprint, the exact cost of hiring the workers, the daily operating expenses, the massive volume of plows they will output, and the huge net profit they will pull in. His father listens in absolute silence. For the first time since the conversation began, he has completely stopped arguing. He is looking at his son with a newfound sense of respect and awe. Every single number Jo Hwi states has flawless logic behind it, and every step has a clear commercial purpose. He finally realizes a profound truth. His son isn't just dreaming a wild, childish dream. He is looking at a future business genius who is about to turn the entire region upside down. And that is where Chapter 3 leaves us. Our main character has officially discarded his modern gadgets and unlocked his true superpower, assembly line manufacturing and modern economics. He has convinced his father to risk it all, but will a 300 silver coin loan from the Fire Dragon Merchant Group be enough to build an iron empire, or will the corrupt local general find a way to crush their new factory before it even starts? What do you guys think of Jo Hwi mass production strategy? Do you think it will work in the ancient Central Plains? Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments section down below. If you loved this deep dive breakdown, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss Chapter 4. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Legends Whisper, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.